Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky was a Russian Romantic composer born in 1840 and lived until 1893 to the age of 53 years old. He was actually the first Russian composer to really impact the Western music landscape. It was during his studies and school that his mother died of cholera in 1854, which inspired him to write his first year's piece of music. In fact, it was his deep sensitivity that saturated his music, producing rich melodies captivating listeners for over a century, and managed to be one of the most important composers of the history.
Then he decided to officially take music lessons at the Russian Musical Society and give up his job at the Ministry of Justice. He became a music professor, and while he taught, he also composed and wrote music criticism. His music was a European mix with a largely Russian band, and at this time, people started to crave something that had more depth and more meaning, maybe a little bit more thoughtful, and that's what Tchaikovsky's music always had. Then, one of Tchaikovsky's well-known compositions was written at that time, the Romeo and Juliet symphonic poem, in 1869 and 1870. In addition, he was also really known for his many ballets, such as The Sleeping Beauty, The Swan Lake, and of course the famous Nutcracker that we're gonna talk about later on. Then Tchaikovsky received his doctorate at Cambridge University in 1893. At this point, he was already considered one of the world's greatest composers. He started conducting Russian music by touring as well in a large number of countries. And Tchaikovsky was helped by many other famous composers, which really helped him rise and become a legendary composer. In fact, he was one of the first really well-known Western composers to become popular in Western music's landscape for bringing Eastern and Western styles together in a way that no one before had, to create his own sound in a very unique way. He was the primary Russian composer whose music made a long-lasting impression internationally, which kept him famous after his death as well. And that's why he really affected his era by influencing the utility music and also many other Russian composers like Rachmaninoff and Prokofiev, since his music is known for its strong emotion, and his technical skill and firm work habits helped him guarantee its lasting charm.
The Nutcracker is a fairy ballet written and orchestrated by Tchaikovsky between February 1891 and April 1892. In classical music, a ballet is a story performed in music and dance with no speaking and no singing, since in the old days of ballet, dance was the only important thing, and the composer's job was to write music that let the dancers show off. As for this ballet, it consisted of an ouverture, 2 acts, 3 scenes, and 15 numbers. Its story was based on a children's fairy tale, The Nutcracker and the Mouse King, by A.T.A. Hoffmann in 1816, adapted later by Alexander Dumas. The narrative is about a girl who befriends a nutcracker that comes to life on Christmas Eve and wages a battle against the evil Mouse King. The Nutcracker was performed for the first time at the Mariinsky Theater in Russia in 1892, and since then it was a big success and is performed till nowadays by countless ballet companies. The ballet is scored for a large orchestra consisting of the strings, woodwinds, brass, and percussion families. In fact, it was noted for its use of the celesta, an instrument that the composer had already used in his less-known works. The dances were choreographed by Marius Petipa, and the libretto was composed by him and Ivan Sevolovsky. In addition, the principal performers were Stanislava Belinskaya playing the role of Clara, Sergei Legat playing the role of the Nutcracker, Timofey Stokolkin, Felix Kshesinki, Augusta Ogolet, Vasily Stukolkin, Antonietta Delera, and Pavel Gert.
The Waltz of the Flowers, number 13, is a scene from the second act of the Nutcracker ballet. It is a ternary form, uses 3 beats in a bar, and its tempo is the valse, speed of a waltz equals to 60 beats per minute. The atmosphere of this scene and the interchange between the instruments are just wonderful and nicely done. We notice many timbre dynamics, where the melodies and the harmonies work well. In fact, the main melody is featured by the string family, creating an overall powerful sound. The woodwind instruments, particularly flute and clarinet, are featured strongly as well, by backing up the string family and setting a magical mood throughout the whole piece. As for the brasses, they were also involved to create a majestic and royal feel, and the percussions are added to in the background, adding to the volume such as the triangles. In details, in this section the spotlight falls first on the harp that introduces the waltz so flawlessly and with a majestic sound on a generous cadenza. Then the four horns introduce the main tune, sorry. Then the strings, whose sweeping melody is one of the most endearing elements in an eternally endearing score. The That is why we can feel the meaning of the story that is being told by the rhythm and melody. Just like the name suggests, Waltz of the Flowers was also inspired by flowers and nature, since Tchaikovsky seemed to love Russian folklore and folk music, as this was what the Nutcracker was based on.
The Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy is another popular scene from this ballet, the third movement from the Pas de deux number 14. It is composed by Tchaikovsky in an expressive, vivid way while drawing attention to the melody as it was the dominant feature of this piece. And it is in ternary from a combination of a homophonic and polyphonic piece and constantly crescendo and decrescendo to convey the delicate and gentle nature of a fairy. Tchaikovsky was one composer who was really good at painting with sound, creating all sorts of colors, textures, moods, and landscapes, especially how he structures the music in this way, with a melody composed with a very chromatic melody line. In fact, this makes it very different and extremely popular, as many compositions aren't composed this way, and it has been used in many aspects of media, especially cartoons and movies for children, such as television commercials at Christmas times. Tchaikovsky. The Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy is famous for two main reasons. The first is that Tchaikovsky used an instrument that hadn't been heard in Russia before. It's the celesta. Similar to a piano, it contains metal plates instead of strings to create the tinkling, crystalline sounds that capture the attention of other composers and audiences who appreciated music, pushing the dance to nearly instant fame. The second reason the music is so famous is because it is usually used in one of the most technically challenging dances in the entire ballet. Everyone looks forward to this dance because they know that, assuming all goes well, it will be an example of amazing dancing. The Dance of the As for the instruments, the string, percussion, woodwind, and brass families were all used in this piece and working together to create a pleasing sound, and especially the celesta, which added the special magic to the dance. The famous work begins with the string orchestra, which supports the celesta melody to create substance in the piece. The strings are hit by hammers, producing a very soft, bell-like sound. As for the melody line, it is the main theme played by the celesta, which makes it stand out as it repeated with the expression and varied dynamics throughout the piece. Therefore, the Sugar Plum Fairy is one of the most widely seen ballet act and heard piece of music. As